One morning, the sun didn't come up. The next morning, the sun didn't come up. After weeks of the sun not rising above the horizon, Lion called a meeting with all of the animals. "This cannot go on," he roared. "Someone must visit the sun god and ask for the sun to rise again." The animals looked around, waiting for someone else to step forwards and volunteer. Slowly, Eagle stepped forward. "I'll go," he said. "I'm sure I can soar high enough." Lion nodded his approval, and all the animals watched in the moonlight as Eagle flew higher and higher. Soon, Eagle was just a small dot against the moon. As Eagle continued to climb, his wings became very tired. "I'm just not strong enough," Eagle said. "I need a strong breeze to lift me higher." Eagle continued to climb. He didn't want to fail Lion. "It's no good," puffed Eagle. "I just cannot get high enough." When he returned, he stood in front of Lion, hanging his head in shame. "I'm sorry. I was sure I'd be strong enough, but I just can't reach the sun god." "At least you tried," said Lion. "Who else is ready to try and wake the sun god?" he asked the other animals. "I'll try," said Monkey. "I can swing from tree to tree to the top of the mountain." Lion nodded, and Monkey disappeared into the forest. Sometime later, Monkey returned, holding her head in shame. "I'm sorry," she said. "I couldn't make it to the summit of the mountain. The trees didn't go all the way to the top." "At least you tried," said Lion. "Who else is ready to try and wake the sun god?" he asked. Everyone looked around, waiting for someone else to volunteer. If Eagle wasn't strong enough to fly to where the sun god lived, and Monkey couldn't either, how could they? Anansi had been watching this from his tree, and he decided this would be a good time to show the animals just how clever he was. So he slipped down from his tree and walked up to Lion. "I'll go," he said. "I have a clever plan. But I'll need to take someone with me." "Who do you need?" asked the Lion. All the animals held their breath and hoped he wouldn't pick them. "For my plan to work, I'll need Ant and Fly." "Are you sure?" asked the Lion. "They're not the strongest in the jungle." "Ant and Fly, come here," roared the Lion. Slowly, Ant and Fly came forward and stood in front of Lion. "Are you willing to help, Anansi?" he asked them. Ant swallowed hard because he didn't want to upset Lion. "I am," he said quietly. "Good," said Lion. "Fly, are you willing to help Anansi?" Fly buzzed quietly, wishing she had the courage to say no to Lion. "Yes," she replied. Just then, a great gust of wind blew down from the mountain. "Fly," said Anansi. "Quickly, take this silken thread, and with the aid of the wind, fly as high as you can. When you reach the clouds, attach it firmly." Fly took the thread and flew upwards. She beat her little wings as hard as she could. Eventually, she reached the clouds and attached the silken thread. Then she grabbed it and slid back down to earth. "It is done," she said, gasping. Anansi began to climb the silken thread, and as he did, he left another attached to the ground. When he reached the clouds, he fastened it firmly and came back down. He repeated this 4 more times, then spun a web that looked like a ladder. Once the ladder was finished, he said, "Ant, climb up and cut a hole in the clouds so we can climb through." So up Ant climbed and cut a hole in the clouds. Anansi, seeing the hole, climbed and Fly followed. Soon, Ant, Fly and Anansi were standing at the edge of the hole, looking in wonder at the world of the sun god. "What now?" Ant asked Anansi. But before Anansi could reply, a huge tent appeared in front of them, and out strode the sun god.
"What do you want?" his voice boomed.
Anansi stepped forwards. "We need the sun," he told the sun god. The sun god laughed.
"Why should I let you use my sun?"
"Without it, we cannot see to eat. We cannot see to drink, and we cannot see to help one another," replied Anansi.
The sun god laughed again. "I'll let you have the sun back if you can complete 3 tasks. If you don't succeed, then you will never see the sun again."
"What are they?" asked Anansi. "I'm sure we can complete them." The sun god scratched his chin as he pondered what task to set. Finally, he said,
"See that field of grass over there?"
Ant, Fly, and Anansi looked, but they couldn't see a field of grass.
"Look harder,"
said the sun god. Suddenly, the largest field of grass Ant, Fly, or Anansi had ever seen appeared in front of them.
"Cut every blade of grass in the field by morning, and you'll have completed your first task."
Fly gasped, "Will," but Anansi didn't let her finish. "Oh, that's easy," he said confidently. The sun god laughed.
"I'll be back tomorrow, and then we'll see."
He turned around and strode back to his huge tent. "How will we ever cut all the grass?" asked Fly. "We won't," Anansi replied, "but Ant and all of his family will be able to do it." Ant nodded and scurried down the ladder to fetch his family. As Fly and Anansi waited, Anansi said to Fly, "Sneak into the sun god's tent, hide and see if you can discover what the second task is going to be." Fly nodded and flew off to see if she could find out what the next task would be. Soon Ant returned with his family. They worked all night, chomping at the blades of grass and cutting them. They'd just finished when Fly came out of the tent. "Quickly, the sun god is coming," she told Anansi. "Let him come," said Anansi. "Ant and his family have cut all the grass." Anansi then asked, "What's the next task?" "We're to eat all the fruit on the fruit trees in the field," said Fly. "But there are no fruit trees," said Anansi. "Are you sure that's what you heard?" "Yes," replied Fly. As Ant's family disappeared down the ladder, the sun god came out of his tent. He laughed, but not so much as he did the day before.
I see you've cut the grass. Well done. But I'm sure you'll never complete the second task.
What is the task? Asked Anansi.
You need to eat all the fruit on all the trees in the field.
The sun god said. But there are no trees, said Anansi, confused.
Look a little harder,
The sun god told them. As Ant, Fly, and Anansi stared at the huge field, fruit trees began to grow. Soon they were full of the largest, juiciest fruit you've ever seen. Ant gasped, "How?" But Anansi didn't let him finish. "Oh, that's easy," he said confidently. The sun god laughed.
I'll be back tomorrow, and then we'll see.
He turned around and strode back to his huge tent. "How will we ever eat all that fruit?" asked Ant. "We won't," Anansi told him. "Fly and her family will." Fly nodded and went down the web ladder to fetch her family. As they waited, Anansi said to Ant, "I need you to creep into the sun god's tent and discover what the next task is." So Ant scurried away, slipped into the tent, and hid. Soon Fly and her family returned and began to eat the delicious, juicy fruit. They ate and ate and they ate. Just as the next day arrived, they swallowed the last morsel of fruit and disappeared down the ladder. Anansi and Fly hadn't seen Ant come back. "Choose the small grey square box," said Ant, making Anansi and Fly jump. "Pardon?" asked Anansi. "The sun god is going to give you a choice of boxes. Take the small grey box." "Are you sure?" asked Anansi. "Yes," replied Ant. Just then the sun god came out of the tent, stretching and yawning.
Oh, what a wonderful night's sleep, he said.
As he walked towards them. But he scowled when he noticed all the fruit had been eaten.
It would seem you've completed the second task, he said.
"It was easy," boasted Anansi. "I hope the next one is a little more difficult."
Well, I've decided to be kind to you,
said the sun god with a smile.
For the third task, all you have to do is choose the correct boxes.
"Oh, that sounds simple enough," said Anansi. "I'm sure," but he didn't have time to finish his sentence when a box appeared, floating above his head. Then another appeared, and another, until there were 101 boxes hovering in the air. They were all different colours, shapes, and sizes.
Just pick the correct one, and you've completed all 3 tasks,
said the sun god with a smile. Anansi pointed at a large yellow box. Not that one, he said. He pointed at another. Not that one either. He continued to point at boxes until there was only one box left. We'll take that one, he said, gently grasping a small grey square box.
Are you sure?
Asked the sun god, looking slightly annoyed. I am, replied Anansi.
Well, open it,
the sun god told Anansi. I'm so sure I've picked the right one, I'm going to give that honour to the Lion King, said Anansi. Anansi Ant and Fly climbed down the ladder and found the animals waiting for them. The sun's not come up, roared Lion. You've obviously failed, Anansi. We need someone else to talk to the sun god. Before you send someone else, said Anansi, open this box. What's inside? Lion asked. We don't know, said Ant. Lion carefully took the box and placed it on the ground. Is it a trick, Anansi? Asked Lion. No, Lion. Please open it, said Anansi. Lion sighed and slowly opened the box. He stood back, but nothing happened. So Lion tapped the box with his foot. Suddenly, a rooster jumped out and ruffled its feathers. What good is a rooster? Roared Lion angrily. The rooster ruffled his feathers again and threw back his head. He crowed. The animals held their breath, and the rooster crowed again. The animals gasped. The animals cheered. As the sun rose up in the sky.